You're listening to the Paul Young Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Paul Young Podcast. And we continue our conversation around emails from Joani. This is part 7. And it begins with an email from Joani. I told you I'd let you know how my reading of Eve goes. And for those of you who don't know, I've actually written a couple other novels besides The Shack. I've written Crossroads and Eve. And then I wrote that other little thing that got me into all kinds of trouble. Lies We Believe About God, which is very story-based, very easy. Some of my critiquers, some of those people who like to find what is wrong in your life and point it out and actually declare themselves as enemies, which they're not to me. I appreciate their presence in my life because sometimes they trigger me in ways friends won't. Stuff shows up and I have to then, by encountering it, have to work my way through it and realize, oh, okay, something else needs to be healed here. That doesn't happen very much anymore. They said about lies, they said, finally he's not hiding behind fiction. Oh boy. Fiction is not a way to hide. I mean, it's a way to say things that are too beautiful for nonfiction. It's like a lyric, a good lyrics in a song. It's just, or a poem, a line in a poem. It just has a way of sneaking past what Lewis would say are your watchful dragons and sneaking past and grabbing you by the heart in a way that you thought you were protecting yourself from. And something like beauty slips by and slips in, and joy surprises you. I told you I'd let you know how my reading of Eve goes. I had to put down your book for a little bit because I was so triggered by the way you portrayed Eve in the first few chapters. The mysterious and expansive and seemingly wise mother of all. I didn't recognize what triggered me at first, just that I was really uncomfortable. I realized after I couldn't pick the book up for a couple weeks that I was still mad about it and at her. I see her as the worst parts of me. The woman that deserves less attention and respect than men because she's too much of everything. Too impulsive and easily led and emotional and prone to sin. I don't even want to look at her, and I avoid spending some time thinking about being a female. I've often wished I could just shuck my female form like an unwanted, heavy, punishing skin of scratchy, ill-fitting wool and just be a soul without all the downfalls of being female. Especially as it seems to get harder and worse as a woman gets older. My mom is going through menopause, and watching it unfold is like watching a horror show. I'm dreading its inevitability. I can hear what you tell me right now. Pass the salt, pass the salt, pass the salt. Did I tell you about pass the salt? I better tell you right now or else it won't make any sense. You know I talk a lot about future tripping, that is moving out of the present in order to live in an imagination that actually doesn't exist. Some future tripping trauma or situation where you have to cover yourself and all the variables involved. I had a gal write me an email and said, I don't know if you remember, we had this meal together. She said, I dumped on you and then you asked me if there was anything that I could actually do about any of this right here, right now. And I thought about it and said no. And you said, well, then pass the salt. And she said, every time I start to future trip, I hear pass the salt. Pass the salt. And the reason is when you're at a meal, the presence of salt is right there. I mean, it's like real. You can actually pass the salt. You can't pass an imagination that doesn't exist. And fear always will drive you out of the present tense. And so what she's saying, I can hear what you're telling me. Don't future trip. Don't future trip. Because she's imagining the inevitability and all the what she sees her mother going through as if that were the model of what menopause is always going to be. And it's not. Yeah, it comes with some challenges. It's part of the shift of how our embodied form will struggle as it begins to more and more move in the direction of death. Ooh, what a great thought, right? As we age. And it has implicit in it its own gifts. If you're not so mad at it that you can't see any of them. It is a challenge. I'm telling you. I've been around it. I haven't gone through it. What do we call it for men? A second childhood or something? There's a term. But it's not the way another person will experience it. It's written in the fabric of who you are as a woman and your uniqueness. So don't future trip it. Like any challenges in our lives, whether it's having a seizure disorder, You deal with it moment by moment. You can't deal with it in any global sense as if somehow you can conquer it through some fear-based control. It's not going to happen. But you understand her point. Not that I would want to be male either. I haven't even been able to talk to Jesus about it yet because I realize I'm mad at him too. I thought I had worked through all those feelings a long time ago. It's frustrating having to do another round of healing and walking through my misunderstandings on this subject. Makes me feel childishly rebellious. But I'm going to bring it again to Jesus today and see if we can work through some of it so I can read more. She's talking about reading more of the book Eve. Here's something so fascinating to me. Historically, men totally fabricated a second wife of Adam called Lilith. George MacDonald has a beautiful book called Lilith. I think it's my favorite. Favorite of C.S. Lewis of MacDonald's books was Phantastes. So powerful that Lewis said that after he read that book, he never wrote another thing in his life that didn't have George MacDonald in it. MacDonald had an incredible impact on English literature, American literature, was a written mentor in the sense that Mark Twain read tons of George MacDonald and learned how to write a lot from George MacDonald. And other modern writers were impacted by MacDonald. What MacDonald did in Lilith, and what I attempted to do also in Eve, was to redeem that fabricated character. But Lilith was like a demon, was the caricature of everything that was evil in women. And they fabricated this as Adam's actual first wife. And then she totally betrayed him and drug him into all kinds of stuff. And so God let him start over with Eve. But a lot of our religious traditions, sadly, combined Eve and Lilith as if they were the same character. A lot of even modern Christianity still holds that Eve is really the betrayer of the human race, is really the one who led poor, helpless little Adam down the road toward rebellion against God, which is as far from the truth as you can imagine. But this character of Lilith represented everything that men did not like about women. She was brash, she was bold, she had a voice of her own, on and on and on it goes. And so you can see this reflected in what Joani is writing about, that there is this struggle being in this world that is so male dominant and so misogynist that it creates huge challenges for women, for girls growing up. And some of the difficulties that we are finding ourselves in now regarding questions about gender, chunks of it, big chunks, come from the religious presentation of sexuality in such a way that they were completely bipolar. And studies know, I've read the studies, because this was a very big deal to me when I was even as a teenager, about how the differences within the whole realm and spectrum of being a woman, those differences from one end of the spectrum of being a woman to the other, were wider than between male and female. The differences were less between male and female than they were in the spectrum of either being male or being female. I hope that made some sort of sense to you. There's a greater difference between men within the landscape of being a man than there is between a man and a woman. But when we taught girls to stay silent and we taught boys to stay angry and strong, and I know there's some of those characteristics that are great on both sides. But what we ended up is polarizing male and female. And there were all these incredible human beings that were caught between that polarity and asking, like, how do I fit into this? And some of this is directly out of the church, right? Where the women are to be silent in the church and all that other kind of language. They are to relate to the man as the one who is making the decisions and he makes them all right, and all of that kind of nonsense. And women can't hold positions and be pastors and evangelists and apostles, and even though there are some apostles that are female in the New Testament, but they can't be in the church, the Western church specifically, and that a woman is suspect and incapable because, they have periods and stuff like that, and weaker. That's not true. Yes, there are things that a male can do that a female cannot do so far. There are sports activities that a woman's body is not made to handle the kind of brutality that is involved. And women are directly involved in the creation of life in a way that men cannot be. To hold life in your body for 9 months, that is one of the most profoundly miraculous, mysterious things that exists in the entire cosmos. And that is the domain of women. And it's not that a man cannot be nurturing. Of course they can. And it's part of wholeness that they are nurturing and caring and kind. But a lot of our systems say, well, they're just making their boys weak. And we're back to saying that violence and strength and protection of territory and all those things really is what defines strength rather than kindness and love. The things that Jesus is. So anyway, a little bit of a rant. But again, I really appreciate this email because you can see out of a little bit of Joani's rant came mine today. My response was, Joani, that is a great response. And good on you for being able to decipher some of what is going on inside of you. Thank you for sharing that with me. The good side of a trigger is exposure, because the unexposed being the unhealed. I'm rather excited as you keep reading in your own time. And yes, Pass the Salt made me laugh. That is our foray into emails from Joani today. I trust that you're enjoying this. But you can always listen to something else instead. That's fine by me. No expectations on this end. Much love to you all. Grace and peace. And Lord, have mercy on us all in every moment, at all times. Amen.